Many countries favor specific religion. Some do, and some such atheists do not. Different religions originate from different founders and regions. Countless conflicts, conquests, missions abroad, and simple word of mouth causes the spread of religions around the globe and forever molded the huge geographic religions in their past. The hardest thing about defining religion is that people believe they already know what it is, but obviously there is more beyond what we know. Today we'll be going through the comparisons between the two religions. What is Stoicism, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and the Cambodian Theravada Buddhism.
Hello, Professor. My name is Virat, and I'll be talking about the origin of Marcus Aurelius Stoicism and the origin of Cambodia's Theravada Buddhism. I'll be talking about where it originated and how it spread. The 2nd century Christ CE, Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was also a Stoic philosopher, and his Meditations, which he wrote to and for himself, offers readers a unique opportunity to see how an ancient person or an emperor might try to live a Stoic life, according to which only virtue is good, only vice is bad, and the only thing for which we normally busy ourselves with are all indifferent to our happiness. The difficulties Marcus faces putting Stoicism into practice are philosophical as well as practical, and understanding how its efforts increases our philosophical appreciation of Stoicism. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius knew about using Stoicism to cope with chronic pain and illness. He had personal experience of doing so. In the years before he was acclaimed emperor, he was already mentioning various health problems to his Latin rhetoric tutor and good friend Marcus Cornelius Fronto. As to my present state of health, you will be able to judge that easily enough from my shaky handwriting. It is true that as regard my strength, that is beginning to come back, and nothing remains beside of pain in my chest, but the euchre is working on my windpipe. The Roman historian Cassius Dio confirms that Marcus had problems with his chest. He adds that he also had stomach condition and took but very little food, and that always at night. He says that Marcus used traditional compound known as theriac, which contained a small amount of opium to help him endure the discomfort caused by these problems. Today, the predominant form of Buddhism in Cambodia is Theravada Buddhism. It is enshrined in Cambodian constitution as the official religion of country. Theravada Buddhism has been the Cambodian state religion since the 13th century, except during the Khmer Rouge period. Theravada Buddhism emphasizes attaining self-liberation through one's own effort. Meditation and concentration are vital elements of the way to enlightenment. The ideal road is to dictate oneself to full-time monastic life. From Sri Lanka, the Theravada Mahavira tradition subsequently spread to the rest of Southeast Asia. It is the dominant religion in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and Thailand, and is practiced by minorities in India, Bangladesh, China, Nepal, and Vietnam. The main three ways in which the religion was transported into region is through systems of trade, marriage, and missionary work. Buddhism has always been a missionary religion, and Theravada Buddhism was able to spread due to the work and travel of missionaries. Many of the teachings of Buddhism encourage practitioners to overcome suffering and anxiety or dissatisfaction. This feeling is seen as being very common to all human life, and the cessation of it part of what all people should strive for. It is easy to see where the core beliefs filters through into wider Cambodian culture.
Hello everyone, my name is Xiaoyi. Today I'm going to present the part about the similarities and differences between the Marcus Stoicism meditations with Cambodian Theravada Buddhism. Stoicism and Buddhism are two remarkably similar philosophies that are created independently thousands of miles apart. They both advocate seeking happiness from an internal source so that the ups and downs of life will not be your masters. The similarities between Stoicism and Buddhism bring to mind a familiar quote, "Great minds think alike." But there are a lot of differences between the two. From there, Buddhism moved to Thailand, Sri Lanka, Laos, and Cambodia to form the Theravada tradition, the closest form of Buddhism to the original teachings. Cambodians' Ataratic Theravada Buddhism is different from the Chinese Mahayana Buddhism that we are familiar with. Also, they have been ordained as a monk. They have no restrictions on food. They can eat meat and vegetables. The teaching of Buddhism are transmitted verbally and through practice, face-to-face, from teacher to students. But for Stoicism, a philosophy that is strikingly similar to Buddhism, the transmission of thought was done in public speaking, from teachers to students, by groups of people debating ideas as well as through written works that survived millennia. For the Stoics, the rational mind is the main element of virtue that sought happiness. It is a happiness that is not overwhelming. No Stoic is hypodancing on the rainbow, and this type of happiness is more an inner sense of being satisfied no matter what the external elements are. Apatheia is the term that the Stoics used to refer to the concept of being free from passions. But the Buddhists will usually avoid the original thinking mind, and they believe that the ego or the self cannot say the fundamental true nature of the world. Buddhism is sometimes tagged as anti-life, which is a judgment that's a bit harsh. Let's not forget that Buddhism comes from a time where extreme ascetic practices were common. The Stoics do not believe in reincarnation and place emphasis on accepting death as an important part of the natural process of the world. Here, Buddhism diverges from Stoicism in the Stoicism does not disdain killing animals, whereas in Buddhism, saving animals for selector counts and karma towards a better rebirth. Stoicism's view on sexual mind conduct is that one should practice temperance and never overindulge. Buddhist monks have much stricter rules to follow, and breaking them can result in expulsion from the monastery. There can be literally hundreds of rules for monks to follow that are specific to their monastery. In Stoicism, it is our interpretation of events that causes us to be happy or unhappy, not an intrinsic quality of the events. That's why it's so important to be a mirror reaction to outside events, because otherwise someone may feel and the life is treating them unfairly, and they could have exercised their ability to not let an unpleasant event make them unhappy. As Marcus wrote, and here are two of the most immediately useful thoughts you will dip into. First, that sin cannot touch the mind. They are external and inert. Anxiety can only come from your internal judgment. Second, that all these things you see will change almost as you look at them, and then will be no more. Constantly bring to mind all that yourself have already seen changed. The universal is changing. Life is judgment.
Hello, I'm Maya. I'm going to be talking about what are the goods and bad in both religions, the pros and cons that you can take from these religions. The story elaborated a detailed taxonomy of virtue, dividing it into four main types: wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Wisdom is subdivided into good sense, good calculation, quick-wittedness, discretion, and resourcefulness. Theravada Buddhism emphasizes attaining self-liberation through one's own efforts.
Meditation and concentration are vital elements of the way to enlightenment. The ideal road is to dedicate oneself to full-time monastic life. The bad in Stoicism meditation, the problem with Stoicism is that it talks about focusing only on what we can control like thoughts and action. But we are living in a dynamic world which is full of chaos. Stoicism might not be the right philosophy for a modern world. Burma, Cambodia, and Sri Lanka as case studies given the magnitude of violence and human rights violation that had occurred in these countries in contemporary times. What struck me later was that all these countries are Theravada Buddhist countries. The pros about Stoicism times of philosophy is good if you're going through real bad time, midlife crisis, or in prison. If you are confined, alone, and mentally tortured, Stoicism brings mental toughness. The big cons of Stoicism is the fact that it takes time. It is a work in progress. When you decide to become a Stoic, it is not some sort of religious embassy. Develop ethics, mindfulness, dedication to dana, donation, generosity, support for teaching and practices, calm and insight meditation, and a liberation wisdom. Endorses widespread inquiry through knowledge, discourse, ancient text, dialogue, diverse method, and environment, such as support for seekers, practitioners, and centers, and the rebirth of ego, of personality issues. These are all the cons of Stoicism. These are the cons for Theravada Buddhism. A patriarchal religion barely any application of change to the status quo, acceptance or ignorance of repressive political, military regimes running a country, beliefs in physical miracle power of sacred objects, relics, oracles, prophecy, magical powers, fortune telling, and other superstition. Various Buddhist monks make claims for a better rebirth for lay people. Monks tell people to make merit, offer ritual, but give little dharma, practice the end rebirth of I and my, chanting rituals and identification, where tradition can overshadow acts of wisdom and compassion. General lack of application to dharma to social, political, and global issues. Focusing of Buddha Dharma with Buddhism such as medieval beliefs and simplistic judgmental views about karma including groups and nations. Lack of effective communication for creative action to resolve 21st century suffering due to issues facing humanity, animals, and the environment. Unquestioning devotion to lineages, lamas, ash, and Zen masters, instead of listening, discernment, and wise application. Worship of the Buddha rather than application of Buddha Dharma. I'm Sophie and I'll be explaining people's opinion on Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism, meditation, and Cambodian Theravada Buddhism. So the Stoicism and Buddhism are two remarkably similar philosophies that were created independently, thousands of miles apart. The first book of meditation consists of Marcus thanking the people who had a positive influence on his life, with a focus on those who instilled in him trait characteristic of a good Stoic. These include valuing reason above all else, not being absorbed by petty things, limiting passion and desire. Sober decision making followed by firm commitment to choose the choice made, honestly and never being secretive, cheerfulness in the face of obstacle and avoiding superstition and the influence of self-esteem. The character trait he lists throughout his first book include many examples worth following and ought to be paid close attention to. The main theme of meditation include change, death, and the shortness of life. Marcus reminded himself to not be upset by the misdeed of others and to correct them if possible. But if they were stubborn and would not change, to accept it. In reacting to such people, we must never allow our own principle to be violated. He likened his relation to bad people to them being different body parts of the same person. Good and bad people are both part of the same universal nature and they are meant to interact and cooperate. Marcus Aurelius and indeed all the Stoics believed that we were part of an interconnected organism, that you couldn't hurt one person without hurting them all. What injured the hive injured the bee, he said. The best revenge, he said, is not to be like that, meaning when you hurt others, you hurt the group and you hurt yourself. He also explained that nothing is made better than by praise. The beauty of things comes from the things itself and not what people say about it. To think then that we are gaining something by being praised is a mistake. There are many other desires, all of which can potentially lead us to act immorally. He cited a philosopher, Theophrastus, who claimed that bad acts committed because of a desire are more blameworthy than evil done out of anger. Marcus teaches that we should act quickly to get our affair in order and take advantage of our fleeting existence and live well. Thou wilt soon die, and thou art not yet simple, not yet free from perturbation, nor without suspicion of being hurt by external things, nor kindly disposed toward all, nor those, though yet place wisdom only in acting justly. Being superior to pain and pleasure allow us to fully accept the course of nature and focus on we experience, not the event themselves. Marcus believed that a person could immediately wipe out any upsetting impression from their mind and be at peace. Marcus knew that our ability to reason is what sets us apart from the animals, and it is an important power that we must use to fullest. He believed, like all Stoics, that our reason could be used to understand the universal reason present in nature, which would lead to agreement with it, even if events seem harmful. Our rational mind have complete power over our opinion, and the mind only experiences suffering when it's itself create a desire for a specific outcome in life. Marcus teaches that our mind is a thing that controls itself completely and is separated from the world. It cannot be affected by an event unless it makes itself be affected. Cambodian Theravada Buddhism. The Theravada Buddhism has introduced to Cambodia since the 13th century. The Theravada believe in the supernature. Many faiths offer supernatural solution to the spiritual problem of human being. Buddhism does not. The basis of all form of Buddhism is to use meditation for awakening or enlightenment, not outside power. Supernatural power are not disregarded, but they are incidental, and Buddha warned against them as fetter on the path. The Buddha Siddhartha Gautama was a man who became Buddha, the awakened one, much in the same way as Jesus became Christ. Since his death, the only contact with him is through his teaching, which point to the awakened state, God. There is no omnipotent creator of God of the sort found in Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. God exists as various type of spiritual being, but with limited power. The path to enlightenment. Each being has to make their own way to enlightenment without the help of God or gods. Buddha's teachings show the way, but making the journey is up to us.
Hello, Professor. I am Mary, and I will be mentioning about the lessons taught by Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism, meditations, and the Cambodian Theravada Buddhism. The lessons from Marcus Aurelius includes 1. Do not spend time worrying about frivolous people who have no positive impact on others. As your energy and time are both limited, don't waste them on what those inconsequential to your life are doing, thinking, and saying. Marcus says the duty of a human being is to help others that we share life with, and one should not fill one's mind with anxiety-inducing, frivolous thoughts, especially since they often lead to negative outcomes. A key point to bear in mind, the value of attentiveness varies in proportion to its object. Marcus writes also that you're better off not giving the small things more time than they deserve. Next is to live in the present. Each of us lives only now. This brief instant, the rest has been lived already, or is impossible to see. Marcus writes, there is nothing to be gained from letting your mind live separate from where your body finds itself. Another lesson is to refrain from imposing your feelings into reality. The emperor was faced with constant fighting, the rebellion of his general Caesius, the death of his wife and close friends, the realization that his friend Commodus was destined to be a bad ruler. But when he removed his feeling from how he perceived those events, he was able to Have sympathy for the people who disappointed him and acceptance for the losses that hurt him, since nothing in nature like death and decay is evil, Marcus writes too. Next is to turn an obstacle into an opportunity. In the recent book, Ryan Holiday cites author Nassim Taleb's definition of Stoic, which is someone who transforms fear into prudence, pain into transformation, mistakes into initiation, and desire into undertaking. As Marcus writes, something happens to you. Good. If it's meant for you by nature, woven into the pattern from the beginning. Get what you can from the present, thoughtfully and justly. Next is to find peace within yourself. Marcus writes that people try to retreat from their problems and responsibilities by going somewhere like the mountains or the beach, but that travel isn't necessary to recollect yourself. He advocates the kind of brief meditation where you withdraw into yourself and quiet your mind. Another is don't resent people for their character. Exert energy trying to change that person's character, let things go, or as he writes, you might as well resent a fig tree for secreting juice. Another lesson is that you are the only person responsible for your happiness. Choose not to be harmed and you won't be harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. Marcus writes, similarly, do not let adulation from others overwhelm you. Do not define yourselves by others' perception of you, since the only way someone can truly harm you is if they can change your character. Next is be mindful of your morality. You could leave life right now, Marcus writes. Let that determine what you say and think. He explains that he should not fear death, but be mindful of the impermanence of the human experience. Next is to keep progressing. Marcus regularly ruminates on how an individual's place in the universe is minute, and that even the most celebrated people are washed away by time. When he wonders then what the point of it all is, he concludes that it is about a personal journey. He knows the importance of meditation and reflection, but judges the mark of personal progress to be through action that helps others and in turn collects you more with the human experience. In his final years, he kept reminding himself that he could not afford to slow down. Do what nature demands, he writes to himself. Get a move on if you have it in you, and don't worry whether anyone give you credit for it. And don't go expecting Plato's Republic. Be satisfied with even the smallest progress and treat the outcome of it all as unimportant. Other lessons include be thankful for what you have and stop worrying about what you don't have, live in the present moment, and connecting with the world around you. Whereas for Buddhism, the religion teaches you that when you like a flower, you just pick it. But when you love a flower, you water it daily. There is a sharp contrast between unconditional love and emotions that are based on other egos, needs, and desires. By learning to understand the true meaning of what love is, we can appreciate the beauty and power it brings to our lives. Next is 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, the truth. The truth cannot be hidden from those who seek it. No matter what life throws at you or what manipulations you have to deal with from others, eventually the true nature of situations will always be revealed. This is particularly important in today's sensationalized information age. We need to see reality for what it is, rather than be manipulated by people with agendas. Take a step back. Think for yourself and observe situations and circumstances before making an opinion about what is the truth. Next is peace comes within. Do not seek it without. Just like Marcus Aurelius mentioned earlier, modern society places such an emphasis on material possessions that we tend to measure our level of success by the amount of money we have or how others perceive us. However, a peaceful life can only be achieved by acknowledging who you are within. As soon as you start seeking happiness outside life, you give up your power to live the life you want. Another lesson is that there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. The old cliche life is about the journey, not the destination, holds a lot of truth. Don't live your life in anticipation of the result. Instead, embrace the joys and headaches along the way to find out what is truly the meaning to living. Another lesson is to saying that an insecure and evil friend is more to be feared than a wild beast. A wild beast may wound your body, but an evil friend will wound your mind. To get the most out of our life, you need to be surrounded by sincere people that are supportive of your authentic self.
When we associate with those who only cause us pain, we rob ourselves of an opportunity to be happy. Everyone you choose to hang out with should add something positive to your life. If not, then what's the point? Another lesson that Buddhism teaches is that you will not be punished for your anger, you will be punished by your anger. Holding onto a grudge does nothing to the person that you are angry at. Instead, it simply consumes your mind and steals your joy. All emotions have their place, but the best thing you can do is to move forward, is to let go of the negativity. It's also more fruitful to focus on kindness and being of service of others. Anger and resentment can cast a dark shadow around your mind to the point that it embezzles your life. Another lesson is that you only lose what you cling to. Many of Buddha's teachings are based upon the concept of attachment. There is no need to fear loss if you remove our emotional attachment from it. Unconditional love and joy comes from fully accepting the experience, even if it's short-lived. Next is to meditate, do not delay, lest you later regret it, which is like what Marcus mentions earlier. Meditation is a powerful technique in quieting your mind and reclaiming your focus. Research has found that meditation almost certainly does sharpen your attention and increase your resilience to stress. Other lessons Buddhism teaches us include that no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. Next is even death is not to be feared by one who has lived wisely. Also, like what Marcus teaches us. And finally is that there is nothing more dreadful than the habit of doubt. Doubt separates people, and it is a poison that disintegrates friendships and breaks up pleasant relationships. It is a thorn that irritates and hurts. It is a sword that kills.